Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for coming to my talk. I apologize in advance. I seem to have lost my voice this morning, but I will do my best. I'm Julia, and together with Elisa, Mekler, and Klaus Opwis, we worked on a study on emotional challenge in digital games. I'd like to start with a personal experience. Recently, I played the game Doki Doki Literature Club, which at first looked like a typical dating sim game. But after a while, glitches appear in the images, in the text, and even in the music. It gets more and more creepy, and this evoked uncomfortable feelings in me. And this made it quite challenging for me to advance. But what is a challenge? A challenge in digital games is commonly understood as tasks that are non-trivial for a player to accomplish. In general, players like being challenged in digital games, and there are different types of challenges. For instance, physical challenge can be overcome by physical skills such as dexterity. As an example, the video on the right side, it's me playing the game VVVVV, dying hundreds of times just trying to get the right timing and pushing several buttons at the same time. Cognitive challenge, in contrast, can be overcome by using one's mental skills. So, for instance, I played the game Myst several years ago, and I can still remember spending several hours finding the right solution to this puzzle, just by observing the environment, memorizing it, and putting the different pieces of information together. Recently, several works introduced the notion of emotional challenge in digital games. Emotional challenge confronts the player with difficult themes by using strong characters and narratives. In contrast to physical and cognitive challenge, emotional challenge was suggested not to be overcome by skill, but by exploring the narrative and emotional ambiguities. This notion of emotional challenge is not unique to digital games. Oh, sorry for that. When we look into research on emotional challenge in movie experiences, a horror movie, for instance, demands the viewers to deal with intense fear. Or by watching movies like A Beautiful Mind, a viewer needs to understand the theme and the message the movie intends to convey. Similarly, in the context of art experience, emotional challenge was also explored through interpreting ambiguous artworks. Considering emotional challenge in games, there are several games that are known for affording emotional experiences. In the research literature, however, works on emotional challenge in games are rare, and so far, no empirical study has explored the influence of emotional challenge on player experience. And there are many questions unanswered, such as how do players experience emotionally challenging moments in games? Or what is actually challenging about such experiences, and what differentiates emotional from more conventional types of challenges such as physical and cognitive challenge. So, what did we do? We did an online survey with 171 gamers. They were randomly assigned to one of two conditions. First, participants described either an emotionally challenging experience or a challenging experience they experienced with a digital game. Here are two example descriptions, both from Skyrim. On the left side, a participant explains their emotionally challenging experience by referring to in-game racism they experienced. On the right side, another participant describes their challenging moment, namely being overwhelmed by the many options of weapons and skills to defeat a dragon. Next, they elaborated on what exactly made the experience challenging. Again, two examples, this time both from The Witcher 3. Making wrong choices and getting harsh consequences were explained as an emotionally challenging moment, whereas finding the right weapons and getting prepared for a fight was described as a challenging moment. Participants also described their emotional reactions. An emotionally challenging moment in the game World of Warcraft was reported to have evoked very uncomfortable feelings, while a challenging moment with the same game first incited hopelessness and frustration, followed by relief and happiness. At last, the participants rated their experience with regards to different player experience constructs. For instance, enjoyment. Enjoyment is commonly considered a core component of player experience. And also appreciation. For instance, the game That Dragon Cancer may not be enjoyable, but many people may still consider it a good game because they are emotionally moved or they perceive deeper meaning. Appreciation was also found to be associated to emotional challenge in movie experiences. Immersion was also included because physical and cognitive challenge were found to influence immersion differently. And what did we find? First, regarding the player experience, participants in the challenging condition rated their experience as significantly more challenging, more cognitively involving, and overall more immersive. Both conditions were considered enjoyable to a similar degree. However, emotionally challenging experiences scored significantly higher on appreciation. Next, we analyzed and coded the emotions participants reported in the written accounts. Challenging moments were mainly characterized by positive emotions and frustration. In contrast, emotionally challenging moments evoked a wider range of negative emotions, but overall less positive emotions. Then, to find out what was challenging, we analyzed participants' written accounts using qualitative content analysis. Overall, we identified 6 different types of challenge. In this talk, I will only talk about these 3 findings related to emotional challenge. So, to find out more about the other findings, please refer to our paper. First, many participants in the emotionally challenging condition reported that confronting difficult themes in games was emotionally challenging. For instance, several players mentioned the torture scene in Grand Theft Auto 5 because it went against their moral values. Some of the participants also explained that by confronting such difficult themes in games, they derived personally meaningful insights. In another example, a participant described that witnessing the instant death of the player character, the small Bopp, made them think about the fleetingness of life. The second way of affording emotional challenge we found was letting players enact situations and decisions with no positive outcomes. This could be, for instance, a decision with ambiguous options where it is unclear what is right or what is wrong. Some in-game decisions pitted players against their personal convictions. For example, in Papers, Please, players earn more money if they refuse all people with illegal papers. However, for this participant, it was emotionally challenging because they questioned their not helping someone in need. The last type of emotional challenge we identified was dealing with intense negative emotions. Sometimes the negative emotions incited by the game were so intense, participants or players perceived dealing with these emotions as challenging. For instance, in horror games, players had to deal with intense fear and uncertainty. Others struggled with intense anger and frustration, stating that these emotions impaired their concentration and their performance for successfully overcome physical and cognitive challenges. For some participants, these emotions were so intense they rage quit the game, and these participants also scored rather low on enjoyment and appreciation. So what are the implications of this work? We found that emotional challenge evokes a wide range of negative emotions, but players nevertheless enjoyed and appreciated their experiences. This contributes to our understanding of the emotional spectrum games may evoke, and it provides insights into the nature of uncomfortable but worthwhile interactions. As I mentioned at the beginning, it has been suggested that emotional challenge cannot be overcome by skill. Indeed, some participants in the emotionally challenging condition had difficulty rating their experience on items regarding performance and skills. For instance, for this participant, a good performance in the beginner's guide was to think about the game and to take valuable lessons from it. This indicates that emotional challenge runs counter to the traditional notion of conventional challenge. And as a consequence, existing measures may not adequately assess and evaluate emotional challenge. And this may also explain why emotional challenge scored lower on immersion in our study, as the immersion scale includes items representative for more conventional types of challenges. Taken together, these findings contribute to a more nuanced understanding of challenge in games. Yeah, thank you, and I'm happy to take up your questions.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gustavo from the University of Waterloo. So a characteristic for the types of challenge is that they can block the progress in the game, at least for some time until they overcome or definitively. So is that something that happens often with emotional challenge? You mentioned at least one case with rage quit, but does that happen often?
So with the rage quit, they were not that often, but there were several people who had to stop or pause the game. And it was also not only with frustration or anger, but also with other emotions. When they were overwhelmed by emotions, they had to take a break.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you too.
So Annika Wern from Uppsala University. I'm wondering about the last comment you had when you talked about how this may not be measured well by conventional models of game experience. Is it something completely different? And if so, should we look more into models from art, for example, or from theater or from other narrative domains to start to understand what's going on here?
I think it's not totally different, but I think it's at least not covered enough for assess or evaluate emotional challenge.
Yeah,
so
because it could be wrong to even call it a challenge. Maybe it's something else that's going on, like catharsis or something like that.
Well, yeah, maybe. But I think, to look into movie or theater experiences, how they assess emotional challenge may be a good starting point for that, yeah.
Hey, my name is Chris from University of Maryland. I was just wondering if what sort of role immersion played in regards to the emotional pain, and specifically what type of immersive factors were most significant.
So what kind of immersion?
Yeah,
okay.
So in terms of like medium, or like was sound particularly important, if they could hear the people's voices? Or like, was it seeing the people's faces, or did you look into any of those aspects, and what was?
No, we didn't look at these aspects. So it was an online survey. So it was, we only had what participants have written, written and rated.
Okay.
That was so.
Thank you.
We didn't